morning and good afternoon to both of you. Very nice to have you joining us today. I'm not sure where you're located, if it's your morning or your afternoon, but thanks. Our topic today is trial master files, why they are important and how to organize them. So we're really going to talk to you about the TMF and why it's such a critical part of your study in itself, running your study as well as preparation for a potential regulatory inspection. So actually, before I jump to the learning and objectives, just a little bit about myself. My name is Donna Dorzinski. I've been training with Barnett in their TMF space for the past several years now. I spent the first 15 years of my pharma career in pharma, in big pharma, working in clinical pharmacology. Back in those days, we were responsible for writing the protocol, executing the study in the clinic, and then writing the clinical study report. It was a great way for me really to learn all aspects of sponsor, monitor, and investigator site responsibilities. After 15 years, I left that company and I went out on my own to do consulting work. I've spent the last 14 years working with small and mid-sized pharma companies, as well as clinical investigator sites, CROs, and some government agencies in areas of clinical compliance, preparing for regulatory inspections, and implementing quality management systems, and then certainly managing the trial master file. So today you'll get a little bit of information on all areas and certainly a significant amount of information on the TMF. Our learning objectives for today are to talk about this ever-changing regulatory climate and how this applies to essential documentation practices and how you maintain your sponsor records. We'll look at the parts of a TMF and understand that the TMF is really not just Section 8.3 of ICH now, it's much, much more. I will do some discussions around policy for TMF. Any organization that has sponsor responsibilities, whether they hold the majority of the TMF content or it's held by a CRO, they should still have some procedural documents in place. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about the core content of those. And hopefully when you're done today, you'll have some material that you can use to write SOPs of your own if you don't, or to audit against when you're auditing. And then we'll talk about how we maintain a trial master file and implement quality control so that we do have a TMF that's inspection ready at all times. So this is my favorite slide. If it wasn't documented, it didn't happen. And that's really been true throughout my whole career. Prior to going into pharma, I spent a few years as a nurse. I think it was drilled into my brain from the very first day that I hit college. But certainly, if we don't have evidence that something happened, no one is going to believe that it did happen. And then I'd like to take it one step further. If it wasn't documented, we don't know whether it happened, right? So many times in clinical trials, the person who starts the study doesn't finish the study. And so we have changes in resourcing for studies. And the documentation is what allows us to understand what actually happened within the study. So the TMF is really the story of your trial. And if you think about it, and if you've ever had the opportunity to look at a TMF in its entirety, it really is the story of the study, how the study happened, the problems and challenges that the study faced along the way, and ultimately how the study ended and what happened to the data. So your TMF in and of itself should be able to tell the story of your study. We hear it referred to quite candidly in EU directives and ICH. The Code of Federal Regulations talks about documentation, but they don't actually call out the term trial master file. So the TMF is really a standalone set of documentation that does not require additional explanation from the sponsor or site staff or anyone else. The successful regulatory inspection, we started in January, and we had 1,000 documents in each of 3 studies. And by the time we finished pulling everything together, we were well over 35,000 documents between the 3 studies. Ultimately, the FDA inspection took place. The inspector was there for 3 days. She interviewed no one. She spent those 3 days reviewing documentation from the TMF. At the end of the 3rd day, she said that she had been able to gain access to all information that she needed to understand how the study was conducted and the quality of the data, and her inspection was done. That was an example of a TMF truly telling the story of the study.